Welcome to the Private Activity Bond and Housing Trust Fund Technical Assistance webinar. My name is Randy Davis. I am the staff person for the El Paso County Housing Authority. I'm a community development analyst here at El Paso County. So let's get this show on the road. So the agenda for today, I'll talk about the El Paso County Housing Authority briefly, to give an overview of the 3 housing programs that we run here. We'll talk about the application, and I'll actually show you the application, give you some tips and tricks on submitting that application, and then do a little Q&A at the end as well. So a little bit about the El Paso County Housing Authority. It was established in 1993, so a little over 30 years ago. It's a non-traditional housing authority. The reason El Paso County did the housing authority is because they wanted a way to give loans to the community to do affordable housing. And you can't do that as a county, as a government entity. So they created the housing authority for that. So it's non-traditional. We don't own or manage anything. And we don't do the vouchers or anything like that. So we do financing for building affordable housing, doing the development stuff. There's a 5-member board for the El Paso County Housing Authority. They meet the second Wednesday of the month, and you can see the industries there that are represented on the board. And they do a semi-annual application process for all of this. Somebody needs to mute there. Semi-annual, so May 1st and November 1st. I'm accepting applications until 5 p.m. on November 3rd this year, because the 1st is on a Saturday, and I know I always get questions on the day applications are due. So we're doing that on November 3rd this year, so I don't have to work on a Saturday. And it's a competitive process for all of these things that we're going to be talking about. So the first one we're going to talk about is private activity bonds. So private activity bonds are actually issued by El Paso County, not the Housing Authority. So it requires Board of County Commissioner approval, and we have to go to Board of County Commissioner meetings to do that. But it's part of the application process for the Housing Authority, because the Housing Authority recommends that to the Board of County Commissioners. There's a $14 million cap allocated annually so far. Based on population. So City of Colorado Springs gets their allocation, El Paso County gets their allocation. We can use our allocation anywhere in the county, including City of Colorado Springs. And we usually ask Fountain. They've got enough population down there that they get a small allocation of PAB as well. And we ask them every year if they'll assign that over to El Paso County, because they only get about 2 million. It's actually less than 2 million, and that's not really enough to do a development. So we ask them to assign it over to El Paso County so we can add it to our 14 million and do a little bit bigger project with that, and so that it stays in our community. The goal is always to establish or extend affordability with whatever projects we're doing. Who's eligible for private activity bonds? We got the private developers, nonprofit housing organizations, other agencies, but you got to have experience in running these things. It's a big program. The application process, again, May 1st and November 1st, but I'm taking applications until November 3rd at 5 p.m. this year. Competitive process, and you need to start your conversations with staff early. That's how we're getting out the application, other than this webinar, because I already got your name when you registered for the webinar. But we do the discussion before submitting those applications. Something new this year, we have a financing threshold note. For November 2025 application cycle, we're using the 50% threshold. We know about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed this summer. It just decreased that threshold down to 25% starting in January. Well, this is the last application that we're going to take. I'm not sure why that showed. Okay. So One Big Beautiful Bill Act starts in January. This is last application. We do not know what our private activity bond threshold will look like in January for the next application cycle, but we will have it nailed down by then. We've got some ideas, we just haven't made it official yet. So this is the last application where that threshold is 50%. We want it between 50 and 55%. 52 is our sweet spot here at the county. Moving on to the Housing Trust Fund. The Housing Trust Fund is administered by the El Paso County Housing Authority to promote suitable. Yes.
Randy, your slides aren't showing anymore. Did you intend?
Yep, here we go. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Are we back?
Yes, we are.
Thank you so much. So again, moving on to the Housing Trust Fund, it's administered by the Housing Authority to promote suitable living environments for everybody in the county. It's a revolving loan fund. So currently sitting at about 6 million. We have about 2 million that's available for the Housing Trust Fund loans currently. Because this is used for a couple different programs. We also run our Pikes Peak Down Payment Assistance Program out of that Housing Trust Fund. Excuse me. There is no annual recurring money that comes into that Housing Trust Fund. What we have is what we have, other than that 2 million in ARPA funds that were put in 2022. So this has to be revolving. When we accept requests for this funding, it has to be a loan, has to be repaid, has to have some interest that's attached to it, not given as a grant anymore. And again, the application process, May 1st and November 1st, and I'm accepting those until November 3rd. Yeah. And the HTF is very flexible. So this is not federal funds. It's not tied to federal funds in any way. It's local funding. So our housing authority gets to decide how it's used. So we do loans anywhere from 200 to 500,000, and that's for the bigger developments. If you're talking 100 units, you know, that's $500,000 application right there. But if you're doing a smaller development, maybe you're doing 10 units, we'd love to see those too. But I would expect those smaller ones to be 5,000 to 10,000 per unit when you're doing those requests. Interest rates anywhere from 2 to 3%, whatever you can pencil out on your performance. And then we prefer the amortized repayments. They don't want to see those where, you know, if you have extra money at the end of the year, then our loan gets paid back. We want amortized repayments on that. Flexible project types. So we focus on creating and maintaining affordable multifamily rental units, but you know, there's some other options out there as well. We've done initial home ownership, some down payment assistance stuff, homelessness shelters and that kind of thing, special needs housing and housing rehab. All of those are possibilities, but we also have CDBG funding here at our office for the county, and that is something that we get annually. So we prioritize CDBG funding for those kind of projects. And then we also say it's flexible for usage because it's gap financing, something that can be added on with these federal funds that have all the rules. This is very flexible. It doesn't have all those rules. So no defined usage requirements either. And then new this year, we get to talk about SLPs or special limited partnerships. We didn't have a document available for this back in the day when we started in October of 2020 when we helped out with Freedom Springs. But we now have the policy document, and I can send you more information about that. I'll send that in the email after this webinar. Some key provisions. The goal is always to establish and extend that affordability. So just like on the private activity bonds and the housing trust fund. There is no application fee. It's all part of this one application that we have. Projects must be located in El Paso County, of course, including the city of Colorado Springs. Just realize that if there's a municipality like the city of Colorado Springs or Calhan, if they have a housing authority, we want letters of support from the municipality and the housing authority if they have one. And then there are reasonable upfront and annual fees that's laid out in the policy document. So we have 3 different programs that I talked about. It's one application accepted May 1st and November 1st, but November 3rd this year. Our board focuses on these main points: the development location. We can do all of these programs inside the city of Colorado Springs, but we like to prioritize outside city of Colorado Springs if at all possible. Get those developments outside of town. Project timelines, we like to see a financial closing within the next 12 months. So let's say you apply for the November 3rd deadline, you will know by mid-December if you're approved or not, and we would expect a financial closing within 12 months from then. So if you have zoning issues, we need to know about that. Those take time to clear up, and we want to make sure you have a completed financial stack so that you know where your funds are coming from so you can get this done within 12 months. They want to see income targeting, so the lower incomes, of course, are a priority, but we go up to 80%. Unit count and mix, and they want to see the repayment for housing trust fund loans. I'll show you that on the pro forma. And then any benefits beyond housing. Are you providing any services at your development? And then if there's any partnerships or collaborations that could be helpful. Our application timeline. So again, I'm accepting applications until 5 o'clock on November 3rd. They're going to have a housing authority board meeting on November 8th. That's where they'll do the initial review of those applications, and they're going to decide who they want to hear presentations from. So I'll let you know by mid-November if they've requested a presentation from you. Presentation materials are due to me by December 5th, so I can share those with the board as well. December 10th is their housing authority meeting where they're going to review all those presentations, and we like to hear presentations of about 5 to 7 minutes with another 5 to 7 minutes for question and answer afterwards. And then by the end of December, you'll know if it's approved or not. And then the other timeline information over here on the right, our attorneys for the housing authority are from QTAC Rock, and they prepare all the closing documents. So whether they're signed by the housing authority board or the board of county commissioners, it's all prepared by QTAC Rock. And then if you are doing a housing trust fund loan, we deliver those funds to the title company on the day of closing. Our housing authority board does not believe in wire transfers. So if you are recommended for a PAB allocation, we will send you an email that says you're recommended and outlining the next steps. There are 2 Board of County Commissioner meetings that we have to go through. The first one is for an inducement resolution. We do that within 2 months of hearing your presentation so that we can get those funds locked down. Then we'd go through a TEFRA hearing. That's our only public hearing other than the Board of County Commissioner meetings. Those are considered public hearings as well. So it's not like the City of Colorado Springs process where they do a lot of public hearings. That TEFRA hearing's held here in our office. And then we do that second Board of County Commissioners meeting where we do the public approval certificate and their final bond resolution, and that's 2 weeks before closing. If you're approved for a housing trust fund loan, you get a conditional commitment letter. So this commitment letter details the development. So whatever you said your unit count and mix would be, your AMI levels, any ADA information, all of that from your application is going to be in this letter. It tells you the loan terms that we're offering to you, the interest rate, the amortization, and all that, and any conditions of participation. So you can see the conditions over on the right. Of course, we want to see an appraisal of the property if you're doing new construction, or payment of expenses. So like I said, our attorneys are from QTAC Rock. They get paid through the developer when we do closing. And receipt of a resolution. We want to see a resolution from the developer authorizing all of this as well. We require you to accept the conditional commitment letter within a couple of weeks typically, and an email on that is fine. So you get an email from us saying, here's your conditional commitment letter. And then you just email back saying whether you accept it or not, or you do some negotiating there, whatever needs to happen. And then that letter typically expires in 12 months. So our Housing Authority Board does not want to tie up their funds for longer than 12 months. So we want that closing to happen within 12 months. And then you have to go back to the Housing Authority for any changes to that conditional commitment. So if you've gotten into this development a little bit further and you decide that you need more 3-bedroom units and fewer 1-bedroom units, that's awesome. But you have to go back to the board to request those changes. I can't do that kind of approval here in our office. So you need to ask yourself if you're ready to apply, if you've got plans to obtain site control, or if you already own the property. If there are no zoning issues, again, that ties things up. If you've got some kind of studies going on, that phase 1 environmental, some market studies, development plans, you've got some paperwork going. If you got the pro forma laid out, that's typically part of the application. I'll show you in a second. And if applicable, if you're going for a LIHTC or private activity bonds not with El Paso County, some kind of letter of intent or inducement resolution for that would be helpful. So let's take a look at the application really quick. This has been revised as of October 1st. And I scrubbed this thing like you would not believe. So when you first open the application, you have got a nice little instruction page. It goes through all of the different tabs and gives you instructions. And right here at the top, it says this application was most recently revised on October 1st. So that's what you're looking for. That's our latest and greatest. The next tab over is our overview. So one second. Let me open a different one. This is an example one that I set up. It's already got some stuff filled in. So same tabs. Here's the overview. So I'm developing a project and it's new construction, it's mixed tenancy, and it's on Fred Lane in Calhoun. I don't even know if there's a Fred Lane in Calhoun. I'm planning to do my financial closing next June. So of course that fits in the 12-month timeline, and lease up will be a year and a half after that. And we're planning to keep the place affordable for 30 years. Here's the 3 different types of applications that we have. So housing trust fund, private activity bond, and special limited partnership, SLP. So when you click yes, all of this stuff fills out. I'm not going to click no over here just because my application's all complete here. But if I clicked yes here, then private activity bond stuff would fill out. So I would know to fill out the rest of this and put in private activity bond information over here. Same, excuse me, with SLP request. If you click yes, it just tells you to fill out that tab. So we'll take that back to no. So you can do all three different requests in the same application. Here you have a summary of the project. So the things we want to see, we're building a 50 unit multifamily building on land we own in Calhoun, Colorado, 10-acre site, zoned single family, but we've been working on changing it. So we want zoning information. Building will serve families who income qualify between 30 and 60%, averaging at 49%. So we're doing income averaging on this property. We're applying to the state of Colorado for VASH vouchers. So we're going to serve veterans here. Let's see what else we have. 21 bedroom units, 22 bedroom units, and 10 3-bedroom units. We're going to have a rooftop deck, a lounge, a library, a game room, walking trails, gazebos. So all the information about the property. Oh, and here we have 5 fully ADA accessible units, and the rest of them will be classified as type B, so they can be made accessible in the future. All of these boxes here you can expand. So if you're looking to add more information, you can make those bigger. We have an overview of the agency. So again, we want to see experience. And according to a market study, how does this project meet the demands of your area? If participating in this project, do you have any wraparound services? What else are you providing for your tenants? And if this isn't awarded, then what are you planning to do? And then at the end, can a financial closing be completed within 1 year? Yes or no? And that's just a drop down. Then we have a list of things to include with your application. These things take up a lot of space and you usually can't just email them. So I can share a Dropbox link with you if you want to send documents that way. Next, we have the development budget. So you start here and fill in the yellow cells. These gray cells over on the right, they do not auto-populate until you put in information in the next 4 tabs. So go ahead and fill in all the yellow stuff that you can about your development costs. And my development is going to cost me about $18 million. Then moving on to the income and expenses tab, here's where you put in the information about the units that you have going on. So remember I said on the first page of my application, we're taking BASH vouchers. Those are subsidized units. So I would put in, I've got 4 of those 1-bedroom and 4 of those 2-bedroom. And the monthly rent that I'm going to receive for those is $863 for the 1-bedroom, but I'm doing BASH vouchers, they're subsidized, so the maximum I'm going to charge the tenant is $360. And the same with the 2-bedrooms. I'm getting $1,243 for those, but the maximum charge to the tenant is $497. But here, the rest of them are not subsidized, so I'm charging the tenant $863, $1,243, and $1,555. So lay all of those out. You could have tons of different configurations for your units, depending on, whether they're subsidized or not. Down here, you have to list if you're going to charge anything for parking or laundry or application fees or any other kind of fees that goes into it. Over here, you can determine your vacancy rate. I believe 7% is pretty standard. That's the CHAFA application. So just know if you put anything less than that, there are going to be questions when you come for your presentation. And then we have utility information down here. Over on the right, you have your expenses for running the project itself. So management fees, office supplies. Here we have all the utilities. If you have an elevator, what's it cost to run that every year? Something for snow removal, repairs, maintenance, all of those things. And I'm saying it's going to cost $350,000 to run my my apartment complex every year. Once you fill out the income and expenses, move on to the financing. Here's where you say what kind of loans or hard debt you have against the property. So here we don't know who we're going to go for that conventional loan. It's going to be a 17-year loan, but the amortization is 40 years. So it calculates the payment for you. Here's where the El Paso County Housing Authority comes in, and all of this stuff auto-populates from what you put in on the first page. Here's where you say what your amortization is going to be. So it's a 20-year loan and it's amortized at 20 years as well. So it figures out the payment for you. And then you put in all the other kinds of financing that you have. And we've got a bunch of other listed over here because we know there's something new every year, right? And once you get that filled out, you can move on to the pro forma. The pro forma is auto-populated from all of those other tabs. So you can see right here, the El Paso County Housing Authority. If you have that housing trust fund loan, it has to be repaid, and that's auto-populated. They want to see that right up front, so it's in red. But then we have other things on here as well. If you've got a ground lease or some other kind of fee that you have to pay annually, you'll want to put that in there. Here's where you put in your asset management fees, and those percentages of how much all of these things go up every year. And then when you're all done with those numbers up here, down here you've got the deferred developer fees and other loans that have to be repaid if you have money to do so. So you can figure out, like, maybe you have 64,000, almost 65,000 left over every year. Maybe you pay back half of that towards developer fees. And then you get your developer fees paid off in 2 years. You have to do the deferred thing within 5 years, typically with LIHTC. So let's drop that down to about 10%. Now you're getting it paid off. Here we go. In 1 to 10 years as well. So maybe you do 5% instead, and now you pay it off after 12 years. So however you want to do that, these things auto-populate based on what you put in here under financing in this area here. So again, most of it auto-populates just to fill in the yellow parts. Next tab is your sources and uses. So again, it auto-populates. You set under financing. Let's put in a $10,000 grant there. And we go to our sources and uses, and it auto-populated. So of course, if you had a $10,000 grant, you would say over here under financing what it is. And then it would show up over here, and you would tell us if you've applied for it, if it's committed, if you're planning to apply for it, whatever the case may be. And then down here, you would say you have site improvements cost about $379,000. That was auto-populated. And we're going to use the El Paso County Housing Authority funds from up here to pay for that. So just general notes on what those things are going to be committed for. Our new tab here, we have the SLP request. So have you reviewed the SLP policy? And we'll send that to you as part, I put it in the chat, but it's not working. So we'll send it to you after this webinar, excuse me. The proposed upfront fee, you have to lay that out right here on the application and tell us how you got that number. So it says in the policy how we want to see that upfront fee. So you have to tell us how you calculated it. A proposed annual fee. So here we're saying that we're doing $100 per unit and we have 50 units. So we're doing a $5,000 proposed annual fee. Our vouchers accepted, and we want to see yes on that one, of course. Is there development occurring in a municipality? So it's a drop down if you're doing your development in City of Colorado Springs, Town of Callahan, Town of Ramo, wherever it may be. We want to see that information. And if you are building in one of those municipalities, do you have a letter of support from them? So we want to see a yes there. Is this development occurring in a municipality that has a housing authority of its own? So we do have Callahan Housing Authority, Colorado Springs Housing Authority, and Fountain Housing Authority. If you're doing a development in any of those three areas, if you're asking the El Paso County Housing Authority to be your SLP, we want a letter of support from that other housing authority as well. And then we have a list of things that we want to see included with that SLP. So if that's the only thing you're requesting, you still have to fill out all of these other tabs. Projected property tax assessment. So the reason for doing an SLP is to get a break on your property taxes. So we want to see how much of a break that will be. The project site plan and unit allocation. Again, if you are not filling out for private activity bonds or housing trust fund loan, we still want to see that information. Evidence of other funding sources that you're planning to apply for. Any other information that would be material. So an SLP, Special Limited Partnership, is giving the housing authority a part ownership in your development. So we want to see any other information that could be useful for a partial ownership in that development. Letter of support from the municipality, if there is one, and letter of support from their housing authority, again, if there is one. I just have to warn you though, if you go to Callahan Housing Authority and ask them for a letter of support, they might have a lot more questions than if you were to go to Colorado Springs Housing Authority. Callahan Housing Authority is not used to those kind of questions, so just know it'll take a little bit longer. And then the last tab we have is for other notes. So if you need to let me know something, put that here on other notes. Usually what I hear on there is the application doesn't work in some spots. So hopefully I've got that all cleared out. And again, we have these instructions if you need them. So that's the application. It's not showing on our website anymore. That's by request only. So I need to talk to you about your project before you get the application, or you need to attend this webinar. So some tips and tricks: give as much information as possible, any documentation that you have, any studies, anything. So I'm talking to somebody that bought the property 5 years ago. We still want to see that information from 5 years ago. You know, the appraisal, the any market studies, anything like that. PowerPoints are not required, but they are very helpful. And let me tell you, if I get 2 applications from 2 different parties and one of them has some kind of a PowerPoint attached and the other one does not, I will probably be calling the one that does not to ask them to attach one, just to make things, you know, apples to apples when we're comparing the 2 different projects. Have the financial stack sorted out as best as you can. Again, they want to see something that's closing within the next 12 months. And you can contact me for a privatebox.com link to upload your larger documents, because I know a lot of that stuff doesn't go over email very well. And there's my contact information if you need to get a hold of me. I'd love to talk about these developments. I love to give you some tips and tricks on submitting the best application possible. No question is a bad question, and I just love to talk about this stuff. So I'm going to see if I can stop the recording process right now and we can do Q&A.
Randy, this is Becky Limoges. I'm the VP of Business Development